Good morning, everyone. Today we're having a presentation by our esteemed President, James Affont. I will let Maria Belaval Kimball introduce him to us. Maria?
Yes, buenos días. Hoy tenemos la presentación de nuestro presidente, James Affont. Él nos va a hablar sobre la historia de los sellos fiscales de Puerto Rico.
Good morning, buenos días. I am going to start with a presentation of what we call fiscal stamps, or you could call them revenue stamps of Puerto Rico. Buenos días, voy a empezar esta introducción hoy con la historia filatélica de los sellos fiscales de Puerto Rico o los sellos de impuestos de Puerto Rico. Let's start from one of the curious things. One of the curious things is that Puerto Rico has a total of 23 stamps, 23 stamps in total if you include the impuesto de guerras, yet revenue stamps of Puerto Rico under the Spanish period, same period, as 749 stamps. So it triples. Buenos días. Vamos a hablar de los sellos fiscales de Puerto Rico, especialmente de la época de España. Y en la época de España, sello de comunicación, o sea que alguna gente se refiere de correo, Puerto Rico tenía un total, bajo la época española, de 223 sellos emitidos. En esa misma época se emitieron sellos fiscales o de impuestos en Puerto Rico 749, casi triplicando la cantidad de sellos de comunicaciones. The first stamps that were put out or not put out, because people would say they were not stamps, is what is called papel sellado, stamp paper. These were issued, the first publication I can find saying of their use was 1736. I know they were used before that, but I cannot find any documentation. Lo primero que vamos a hablar de papel sellado. Papel sellado se usó en Puerto Rico para los efectos de empezando en 1736. Estos sellos fueron usados en un papel, un propósito. The purpose of the papel sellado is kind of different than anything else that we can find. The papel sellado was to create the purpose to be used strictly for contracts and for public records. You would write down there your deeds, you would write down your contracts, you would write down your contracts for delivery or pickup, you would assign there your contracts with banks for loans, with societies, commerce, industry, and if you were going to hire somebody, if you're going to buy a farm, if you're going to sell a farm, if you're going to give a right-of-way, all that had to be through there. If it was not on this kind of paper, it was not valid. You could write it in any paper, but if it wasn't in this, the courts would not recognize it. El papel sellado se utiliza para los fines de escrituras, pólizas de contratos, seguros marítimos y terrestres, para los títulos de acciones de bancos, préstamos de bancos, sociedades de crédito, comercio, industria, minas, certificaciones de acta de conciliación de deuda, en la venta de fincas grabadas, en la venta de propiedades grabadas, en permutas, importe de parte de algún valor, en adjudicaciones judiciales y en otros. Si no estaba el contrato o el documento en este papel sellado, no era válido. Bien. Now, let's go back. If you look at this papel sellado, it will tell you in the right corner, it will give you a number 1 all the way through 12. Como podemos observar, este es el papel sellado. As we can see, this is typical of the original paper that was used in Spain that was later transferred to Puerto Rico. These are not Puerto Rico, they are Spain. These are used in Puerto Rico. If you can see in the right corner, they have a number, sello número and the year. This was very important. If you had to use the correct number and the correct value, depending of how much it was, If it was something for up to $50, it was 25 cents. $50 to $100, it was 50 cents. If it was 100 to 200, it was at 1 peso. If it was 200 to 400, it was 2 pesos. If it was 400 to 800, it was 4 pesos. If it was 800 to 1500, it was 750. If it was 1500 to 200, 500, it was 2,500 to 3,750. It was 1875. And anything above that was 25 pesos. I don't have anything with 25 pesos, but if you see the one in the middle, it's 750, which means that that transaction was between 800 to 1500. The other one is a 1 peso 50. That would have been over $200. And if you look at it, it says right there, venta de solar. Okay, that means he was selling a lot. Ok, vamos ahora en español. El acta o se pagaba de acuerdo a la cuantía del acta o del acta. Si el acta era de 50 pesos, pagaba 25 centavos. Si era de 50 a 100, pagaba 50 centavos. Si era de 100 a 200, pagaba 1 peso. Si era de 200 a 400, pagaba 2 pesos. Si era de 400 a 800, pagaba 4 pesos. Si era 800 a 1500, pagaba 7.50. Si era de 1500 a 2500, pagaba 12 pesos con 50 centavos. 2.500 pesos a 3.750 pesos, pagaba 18.75. Y de 3.700 en adelante pagaba 25 pesos. Si podemos mirar al del medio, verde, que es un sello número 2, que quiere decir que eran los títulos de cambio, ese es una transacción que pagaba entre 800 a 1.500 dólares. El de la derecha, que es un peso 50, ese es, dice ahí muy claramente, venta de solar. Ese era una transacción entre 200 y 400 dólares. Eso era lo barato que se compraba un solar en Puerto Rico en aquella época. Now, aquí podemos ver, here we can see some unique things that we did not understand that were happening. This big one I wanted to show everybody because it has one word to the left. It said pobres, which means poor. Under the statute, if you are poor and you cannot afford the government would cover that expense. This was done between 1854 and 1855, this one in particular. And even though it says 1 silo, which it really is that it does not pay. It is interesting that under the collections of revenues in Puerto Rico under the Spanish period, they did provide for the poor people. Or people who cannot afford it, they would do it for free. Now, I would have to say this would not include all the others, but this would include what we would call that you had paid something off and you had to get a receipt and it had to come in something like this. You were poor, you did not have to pay for it. If you were trying to pay, you needed a copy of some document and you did not have the money to get the copy of the document and you were poor, this is the one that was used. Next, you will see the tres pesos sello number 5. That was used mostly, to be honest, to pay for wills. Okay, the last one is just that I wanted to show you the signatures that in the good old days, las rúbricas would have to be in top of the document. Rúbricas were the way that this notary certified his name. Es interesante ver este sello, porque este sello se usaba y el papel timbrado para los pobres. Los pobres no tenían que pagar por sus recibos, no tenían que pagar por las copias de los tribunales, no tenían que pagar por las copias de esos documentos que aparecían en las actas con sus nombres, porque eran pobres. Y el gobierno proveía un servicio. De hecho, este es el sello más difícil de conseguir, el de los pobres, porque es el que más escasea. El sello número 5 de 3 pesos se usaba mayormente en testamento. Y el último es que podemos ver que la rúbrica está por encima del documento y requería en aquella época que se hiciera así. Aquí quiero traer 3 cosas. First, I want Greg to understand this one. The one in the middle, the larger one, that little stamp that you see there, that is Montepío. This is a stamp that was issued in the 1880s. It was for the purpose of collecting for a specific purpose. I think you can see now more clear Montepío right there. That was used in a will. That is a one with 4 pesos, which is kind of interesting because that one should have been a little bit more than 4 pesos. The other thing that I would like to say here, that N in front of the number, that was used mostly in Puerto Rico. I've seen some in Cuba, but mostly they were used in Puerto Rico. That N, but this was for a will, and this is the 25 cents Montepío that was really what I would call a special tax. What I mean by special tax, it was created for one purpose. Everything that was collected under this was to be used to help people with tuberculosis on the island. So that was created by the governor of Puerto Rico, and it was only used in Puerto Rico, and that was it. So this is one of my prides and joys because, to be quite honest, that's my only Montepío that I have, my total collection. I've heard of it, but this is the only one that I have. To me, that is special. The other things that I want to bring up here is, first of all, the one on the bottom says papel sellado. That came out of the printing shop that way. So when people ask me, where do I get this? Because other people refer to it as timbrado, it's from here. Also, as you can see, the papel timbrado, like everything else, had years on it, but it was allowed to be habilitado. This one was habilitado for Benigno 1890-91. And then it was habilitado again a second time. And this is what is kind of interesting, habilitado for 1894 and 1995. So when they have paper left, they just didn't throw it away. They just put another stamp on it and say, hey, you can use it now for these years. So papel sellado, like stamps in Puerto Rico, whatever was left over could be sent out. Now, if you notice this is for contratos y ultimas voluntades. That means this was strictly for contracts and wills. But what is interesting is that I've looked here in one of my books, and some of these papel sellado were habilitados not because they were left over, it's because they came from Spain late. By the time they arrived in Puerto Rico, they were expired. So they would habilitar. This one was habilitado twice, and it's interesting, even though it was 1888, it went all the way to 1895. Now, the next one, in that same sequence, the one in blue, also was habilitado, and they changed the value of the money. From 12 pesos 50 to 10 pesos. It was habilitado para contrato before notaries, pero it was habilitado for 1898. Lo interesante del papel sellado es que el papel sellado, igual que los sellos de comunicación de Puerto Rico, fueron creados y fueron habilitados. Como podemos ver, que era de 1894, fue habilitado para contratos ante notario en la clase y se podía usar hasta el 97, y se le cambió el valor de 12 pesos 50 a un valor de 10 pesos. También es papel sellado, como dice arriba, para contratos y últimas voluntarias y documentos que se originen ante notario. Le cambian el valor también. Era de 3 centavos de peso, se lo cambian a un valor de 10 pesos. Lo habilitan primero para 90-91, pero después lo habilitan para aparentemente de cada papel para 90-94, de 94 a 95. Eso, al igual que los sellos en Puerto Rico se habilitaban, el papel sellado que no se había utilizado se habilitaba. Pero a veces se habilitaba porque llegaba tarde a Puerto Rico y ya había expirado el año que decía arriba y lo habilitaban. Estos son sellos de pobres, los dos, y tienen escritura y fueron usados en una escritura, pero era para pobres. Y como pueden ver abajo, también ya en los 1800 se empezó a usar los sellos de notario. This one is a document that was for poors, and it was done in 1867, not signed by the notary, and you can see back then notaries were starting to use rubber stamps. Vamos a entrar. Let's start with this. There are some state payments that they issued paperwork for it, but this was strictly for state payments, municipal fines, and reinstatement of payments. En español, estos son los pagos al Estado, las multas municipales y los reintegros. Now, let me explain something about the reintegros or the reinstatement of payments. The government didn't give you money back. If they owed you money, they gave you a piece of paper say, you could use this to pay anything back to us. So if they owed you $5, they did not send you a check for $5, or they did not give you $5. They gave you a piece of paper saying this is worth $5. Next time that you owe something, you could pay it. Los pagos del Estado y las multas municipales se explican por sí solos. Tú le debías al gobierno, lo pagaba. Tenía una multa municipal que se te había impuesto, lo pagaba el municipio. El reintegro es un poquito interesante entender cómo funciona en las actas del gobierno de Puerto Rico. Si el gobierno te debía a ti algo, porque te cobró de más o porque le da un reintegro el que tú podías usar para pagar algo después al gobierno. Estos son los sellos básicos como que pueden haber pago al Estado 5 centavos de peso, pago al Estado 1 peso, pago al Estado 50 pesos, multas municipales 5 pesos. As you can see here, the first three is a pago al Estado, which is a payment to the state. It's with the full document, and it's for 5 cents of peso. Okay. Then you have the same one with pago al Estado in brown with 1 peso. Then you have the same in blue, which is 50 pesos, 50 pesos. And then you had a multa municipal for 5 pesos. One last thing I want to bring about the attention about these stamps. These were documents. They were two-parted. The top, the government would keep, and the bottom would be your receipt. They would cut them in half, and the top would say, receive from Greg Grenville, $400 pesos today in payment of his permits for XYZ. And that payment would be your receipt. Now, let me start with judicial rights or derecho judicial. These were the first in form of stamps ever issued in Puerto Rico, Cuba, and the Philippines as to stamps issued for revenue purposes. Papel sellado was for contracts. The other one was for receipts. This one was stamps. It's curious because these stamps were used between 1856 to 1881 in Puerto Rico. These stamps in a total, believe it or not, were 251 according to Fletcher, 252 according to Barata, whichever of the two. And I think the Barata one is more of a variation than a stamp. These were to be attached to every legal document. And by legal document, it's not necessarily a contract. But if you are going to court and you want to have somebody subpoena, it had to have the stamps. You wanted a copy of the decision, it had to have the stamps. You wanted a copy of the arrest report, it had to have these stamps. You wanted a copy of the minutes of the court, it had to have these stamps. You wanted to sue somebody, it had to have these stamps. You wanted to be, you were responding to that suit, it had to have these stamps. And believe it or not, people will tell you that this was the initiation of what today are still called in Puerto Rico sello de renta internas, which are required in every court proceeding to this day. These stamps, like I said, were issued during that time. Believe it or not, they are perforate, imperforate, and in some years they made them perforate and imperforate in the same year. These ones that I have here were the first ones. They don't have any year of it, and they were issued back then, the first ones, in reales. Reales was the first thing that we had. Puerto Rico had those, and they had the distinction that, as you can see, the first stamps were very simple. And in 1856, they were changed to use stamps that you have simply because in Cuba, they were falsifying the sellos of 100 reales fuerte de plata, which in today's monetary system would be about $4,000. It was silver. So, yeah, there was forgeries. They were done in Cuba, and all the 100 pesos were forged, and they were found in Cuba, and the people who did them were arrested, and they decided that after 9 years of using the stamps, it was time to go back to something more reliable and more difficult to falsify, and for the record, not as high in value. They learned the ones that they put out, this ones, they start in medio real and go up all up the way to 100 reales fuertes, but because they were more complicated, they were harder to falsify. Los sellos de derecho judicial empezaron en 1856, fueron los primeros sellos fiscales. Estos sellos se utilizaban para todo documento legal. Si usted demandaba a alguien, tenía que tener los sellos. Si usted era demandado, tenía que tener estos sellos. Si usted iba a procesar un testamento, no que iba a hacer testamento, sino que iba a hacer la sucesión, tenía que tener estos documentos. Cualquier documento que entrara a los tribunales de Puerto Rico tenía que tener estos sellos. Si usted quiere una copia certificada de un documento que aparecía en la corte, usted tenía que llevar los sellos para que se le pusieran. Básicamente, estos son los primeros sellos que se usaron en Puerto Rico y se emitieron un total de 222 sellos de este tipo desde 1856 a 1881, que el gobierno de Puerto Rico decidió eliminarlos. Valga la aclaración. El gobierno de Puerto Rico los eliminó, Cuba los siguió en el 81. Estos sellos tienen la característica de los primeros que se hicieron en 1856 a 1864, los 4 últimos de 100 reales fuertes, de plata fuerte, fueron falsificados en Cuba, las personas fueron arrestadas y se llama el Gran Escándalo de La Habana. En 1865 se emiten estos sellos sin fecha, si se fijan, esa parte está en blanco y de ahí en adelante, esos son esos mismos sellos, pero con la fecha, emitido de medio real fuerte, 1 fuerte, 2 fuerte, 5 fuerte, 10 fuerte y 100 reales de plata fuerte. Estos fueron los últimos que se emitieron bajo reales. En el 66 fueron escudos y en el 67 fueron escudos, 68 fueron escudos, 69 fueron escudos, 70 escudos y no fue hasta el 71 que salieron lo de peseta. ¿Ok? Y después siguieron en peseta hasta en 1981, que fueron los últimos que fueron en pesos de Puerto Rico. Estos sellos, vuelvo y digo, se usaron con ese propósito. Algunos de estos sellos eran imperforados y otros eran perforados, pero se usaron estrictamente para ese propósito. Police documents, with these were issued for a strange purpose. There is a debate in Barrera and in Fletcher that not all the stamps that were issued under Documentos de Policía were used in Puerto Rico, but it is clear that they recognize that they cannot prove that they weren't either. These documents were used for various reasons. One, if you needed an ID, it would be used for that. If you needed something to be established that you did not have a criminal record, if you needed to have a copy of an arrest record, if you need a copy of something that was in the possession of them, you had to use these. Strangely, they were used as an alternative to the cédulas that we're going to discuss in a few minutes, and you might find various slave documents with these stamps on them instead of the stamps of cédula, or instead of regular stamps on them. They were also eliminated by the same act of the Puerto Rico government in 1881, and for the record, Cuba continued using something like 25 and 77 when they started using these in Puerto Rico with the name Puerto Rico on them. And strangely, they only used for 1 peseta 25, 7.50, 20 peseta, y 40 peseta. They used 4, but Cuba used at the same time 22. So Puerto Rico selected only to use 4 versus Cuba that was using 22. Documento de policía se usó en Puerto Rico desde la época de 1865 a 1877, en verdad hasta 1879, y estos fueron utilizados con el propósito para copias de documentos de la policía, certificado de buena conducta, como se dice hoy en día, certificado de no arresto, copia de papeles de arresto de alguien, copia de cualquier otro documento público que estuviera en la posesión de la policía. También se utilizaron para la afiliación de esclavos, el documento de la afiliación de esclavos, se utilizaron estos también para ese propósito cuando no habían cédula. Puerto Rico se decidió en 1881 eliminar el uso de documentos de policía por la misma orden del secretario de Hacienda de Puerto Rico en ese año, que eliminó esto y los sellos judiciales en un mismo acto. Eliminó los dos títulos. Now, these title stamps sometimes confuse people. They think that these were used mostly for land titles. They were not. As a matter of fact, they weren't. Títulos were used for the simple reason, and I have one in a friend's possession where his uncle, great uncle, was appointed what we would call here a state attorney, and what they call there a fiscal by the crown. The thing came to Puerto Rico, and he was required to pay the stamp, put it on there, have it signed, canceled by the governor, and signed by the governor, and that was his official title as a government appointee. That's why they're virtually impossible to find use, and that's why they're probably the most scarce of all of the fiscal stamps of revenue stamps of Puerto Rico, because to be quite honest, that one stamp there is worth at least $50. It's not cheap. They're not cheap at all. Bien, los títulos no son lo que la gente a veces cree. No son títulos de propiedad. Son títulos de nombramiento. El tío de mi amigo Carlos Torres fue nombrado fiscal de Aguadilla. Llegó los papeles de España. Llegó a Puerto Rico, compró el sello de título, se lo puso, fue sellado por el gobernador de Puerto Rico y firmado por el gobernador, y ese era el título que tenía que exhibir como para él poder funcionar como fiscal de Aguadilla. Esos son los 6 títulos. Muy escasos, muy difíciles de conseguir, porque nunca fueron puestos en documentos públicos, sino, para ser bien claro, en documentos privados, y por eso son virtualmente imposibles conseguir hoy por hoy usado, y los nuevos que conseguimos son muy escasos porque, a diferencia de otros sellos que podrían llegar a 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, por lo que se pudo detectar, estos llegaban en los cientos a Puerto Rico. Customs, aduanas. Customs is kind of an interesting thing about Puerto Rico. There are more in 1896 and 1898, the first stamps came that used the word customs on them. Prior to that, you can see to my left that they were using for customs cuenta y recibos. They were using giros for that. The very famous giros that they used, the green ones that were from 1860s, they were put on them aduanas because they did not have aduana stamps at all. Contrary to what people would call customs, this is not necessarily for people coming in. This was for property coming in more than anything else. These, if you look, recently I purchased again one of the things, which is a declaration of aduanas. You were not declaring people there. You were declaring the property that you were bringing in, its value, its destiny, and everything else. So it was really used most for property. If you could see that, that is Arroyo, and for the record, Arroyo was basically one of the 4 largest ports in Puerto Rico during the 1860s, something that we have found out studying these stamps. Bien, Puerto Rico no tenía sello de aduana hasta que dijeran aduana hasta 1883, pero tenían los sellos, como vemos aquí, de recibos y cuentas de Puerto Rico sellados para efectos de timbre de aduana y usados a estos efectos durante este tiempo. Como podemos ver, estos sellos no se usaron para las personas que estaban entrando para esa aduana. Se estaban usando para las propiedades que se estaban entrando, la mercancía que estaba entrando, y se tributaba sobre eso. Hay documentos donde aparece ese mismo sello que usted tiene de frente en el documento y decía Arroyo y decía 4 páginas del desglose qué es lo que usted está trayendo, de qué país, cuánto pesa, cuánto vale y demás. Y una descripción bastante larga y había que hacerlo con todo lo que entraba a Puerto Rico. De hecho, la mayoría de esta documentación está hoy por hoy en España. Ok. Estos son los sellos de aduana que en un bloque dice, these are the custom stamps that came in, and as you can see, they say 1897, no, 1898, 1899, and basically they were stopped being effective after October 17, 1898. This is a block of 6. This is the 5 cents ones, and as you can see, it says Puerto Rico Aduanas, 25-cent stamps on that sheet. But that's a block of 6 that I purchased recently. Next. Okay. These are probably the most controversial of all. Why do I say controversial? Because there's people who question their use because they can't find them. Unfortunately, these stamps were used for passports, they were used for hunting, and they were used for consular fees. Now, the truth of the matter is, this was supposed to be in your passport, and this was supposed to be in your papers in transit if you were coming in and out of Puerto Rico, but you were not a resident. Your hunting licenses and consulates, that there were many in Puerto Rico back then that we tend to not understand. Now, the reason I say these are controversial is because I've heard from people who tell me that they haven't seen them, that even though Barretta and Fletcher recognize them and say that they were used, they can't find anything used. And I attribute that to what I call the Scott phenomena, that for something to be a postage stamp, you have to prove that it was used in the postage, which I always found interesting because they do put a lot of CTOs and Scott, which we know many of them may have not been used postally. These stamps have a value depending what they're for. They're huge, even though that looks small there. Those stamps were huge. And when I say they were huge, they were huge. Their average size would not fit on an envelope today much. You had them for free for those people who are foreigners who were poor. You had them for $4 if you're a foreigner to come in. And strangely, if you're a national, you had to pay $12 to come in. If you're in transit, and you were coming and going, that was 2 pesos. For hunting, it was 2 pesos. And for passports of foreigners, that was really 4 pesos and 12 pesos for nationals again. And the consular fees were 1 and 2 pesos. Again, I will recognize that some people have told me that they question this stance. I don't. Estos son los famosos sellos de referencias. Se le llama sellos de referencia o referidos porque básicamente son unos sellos que se usan exclusivamente para pasaporte de personas extranjeras, para pasaportes nacionales, y valga la redundancia, nacional en Puerto Rico era que habías nacido en Puerto Rico, aunque fuera de padre español, eras nacional. Tu padre no, pero tú sí. Pasaporte para gente transitoria, en otras palabras, yo vengo a hacer negocio, pero me voy en 5 o 6 días. Ese era otro tipo de pasaporte. El pasaporte de casa y el pasaporte consular. Si tú entrabas al país como cónsul, tenías que pagar 1 o 2 pesos, dependiendo la época que tenías que pagar. This is a literal translation badly done. I'll stop with this. Giros is what people call today money orders, but that was not this. Giros were stamps that were created in Puerto Rico. They were used between 1882 and 1898. They were created by this law. Purpose of this? Any transaction that was not covered by the other ones that were specified. In other words, if you say, well, wait a minute, I'm about to sell this person my products and he's about to pay me this much, and it was a matter of aduanas, then you would use these stamps with a cancellation of aduanas on top of it. So basically, some of these would have that. If you couldn't find a stamp because that was quite famous in that era, you would use this stamp. If it was something that the person in charge of the office cannot find where it would fall, it would use this stamp. These stamps, believe it or not, were issued in Puerto Rico in 1882 by the order of the Secretary of the Treasurer, excuse me. And these, believe it or not, had 117 different variations through the years. I tried to put them there as the way they were issued, and basically the greens, the sepias, the browns, the chestnuts, and the blues, that was the order in that they were issued. And as you can see, they went from all the way from 5 cents all the way up to 15 pesos, and sometimes even higher. They were used more than anything else, according to this act, for those things that were not covered. So they had a purpose. Estos son los sellos de giro. Los sellos de giro se usaron en Puerto Rico desde 1882 hasta 1898 y fueron autorizados por esta ley que tengo aquí, que si alguien quiere copia, con mucho gusto se la hago llegar, por el secretario de Hacienda de Puerto Rico. Propósito más que otro fue para aquellas causas que no cubría o no estaban cubiertas se pudieran utilizar. Ejemplo, si mira el sello verde, ese sello verde famosamente aparece utilizado en aduanas, con un sello de goma que dice aduanas. Ese sello fue utilizado para cubrir aquellas cosas de aduana, porque en esa época no había sellos de aduana en Puerto Rico. De hecho, estos sellos se usaron hasta que llegaron los sellos de 1898 junto con los sellos de recibo y cuenta para cobrar aduana. This is what we will call the last rites, or los sellos de testamento. These were really used for the purposes of wills. Estos sellos se utilizaban mayormente para, con todo el respeto, los testamentos y las últimas voluntades. This is probably the one that has always been in debate for everybody. According to Flusher and according to Barretta and according to Edifield, these are revenues. According to Scott, these were taxes put on postage during the war, which is partially correct. They were used on that, but I have them used on telegraph and I have them used on other revenues. But the fact that the first word in this is impuestos, which translates to taxes, is where I believe that the dispute should start taking place. There is no reason why we do not have this as a revenue, but Scott says it is a stamp that was used for postage too, and it was, so I would differ to that. But these impuestos de guerras, Scott recognizes 13, Edifield recognizes 24, Fletcher recognizes 31, Barretta recognizes 28. They're all over the road on this one. Their revenues, for the simple word that tax is tax, that's clear to me. Estos son los famosos impuestos de guerra. Un sello fiscal, un sello de que estamos discutiendo esta mañana, es un impuesto. Esto fue un impuesto puesto por la guerra que hubo entre España y Estados Unidos, en Puerto Rico, estos sellos sí se usaron para correo, pero también se usaron, con todo el respeto, para telégrafo y para contratos que se estaban haciendo en ese momento. Estos sellos, de acuerdo a Vareta, están en 28, de acuerdo a Fletcher hay 31 y de acuerdo a Edifil hay 24. Pero entra en el timbre móvil is kind of short because realistically we do have them, but if we're going to be honest, it's really one stamp. This is it. We know it was used in 96 and 97. There's mention that there's others, but I had not really seen them. And if you notice, this is something, again, habilitado for 96 and 97 on a stamp that was used in 92 and 93, and it was valued for 2 cents. I think there's more than, and now I'm going to correct myself because I'm almost positive that there's more than just one. There is more than one. But basically, I've never seen it used on any paperwork. I don't have any. That doesn't mean it wasn't used. But mostly what I've seen is in this value. Estos son los famosos sellos de timbre móvil. Los timbres móviles se utilizaron de acuerdo a la documentación de Puerto Rico de 1896 a 98 por 2 años. Y este es el único sello que se encuentra para ese propósito. El sello yo nunca lo he visto utilizado, nunca lo he encontrado en un documento, pero sí lo he encontrado en los documentos de Puerto Rico como aprobado para ese propósito. Y el propósito era, si yo iba a un pueblo y no tenía más ningún otro sello, necesitaba ese sello, usaba este sello. Pero aparentemente no ocurrió mucho. Cuentas y recibos, accounts and receipts stamps. Now this is one of the stamps that is uniquely interesting. This was supposed to be on every document where you were bringing in, you had received something and you had put it into your account. This can mean that you received, and this was very common back in the days, where I would receive in payment for my coffee a living room set. Well, this is the stamp that I would use. I would receive from my agent something. This is the receipt that I would use. I would receive something from the government. This I would use. And strangely, during the years that this was a custom, particularly in 1893, 1894, and 95, we find these stamps attached to a 2-cent stamp of Communications of Puerto Rico as on receipts of other documents of things that came through the port. If I look correctly, this was authorized because they only had 5-cent stamps and the cost was 12, so you had to put a 2-cent stamp of Communications, which was always authorized. Now, this stamp was also changed from year to year, and the varieties of this are about 5, and there's not varieties, they're different years that they were put out. Este es el sello de recibo y cuenta, como dice aquí. El sello se usó para si usted recibía algo. Fíjate, no es exportación, sino si usted recibía algo. No era que usted compró, es que usted recibió. Ejemplo, sus padres le mandaron un juego de sala de España, pues eso pagaba. Su hermano le mandaba unos trajes a su hermana en Puerto Rico, eso pagaba. Le mandaban libros a usted desde allá, desde España, para que usted lo leyera, eso pagaba. O sea, eran recibos y cuentas. Si había una cuenta que se estaba saldando, por ejemplo, te estoy mandando este juego de sala en vez de los 2,000 pesos que te debo, pues eso era una cuenta que se estaba satisfaciendo. Estos eran los sellos. La cantidad que se pagaba mayormente era 12 centavos, creo que por cada 1,000. No había sello de 2 centavos de recibir cuenta, y lo que se hacía, y es muy común ver, atachar un sello de 2 centavos de comunicaciones a 2 sellos de 5 centavos, con una cancelación de la persona que trajo esto a Puerto Rico. Now I want to talk about couple of things that I left out because one, I was trying to get everything that I wanted and I couldn't get it on time. I'm going to start with the cédulas. Cédulas were issued between 1869 and 1875. The reality is that after 1873, they became used to a certain extent, and that's why they were eliminated in 75. Took them 2 years to catch up. Now, the reason I wanted to leave this for last is because of all of these, they're probably the most controversial. If you ever find a affiliation of a state slave registry in Puerto Rico, which you can, and they're very common, and most of us collect them, you will find that this was the stamp that was supposed to be attached. The first ones were in 1869, they were in escudos, then they went to peseta, and they stayed in peseta. Now, strangely, they have a distinction that they have two, which is rural, and they have one that is urban. Now, this is where it becomes interesting. The rurals have always been cheaper. In 1869, it was 400 milésima escudo, so it was in 70. 71 was 1 peseta, all the way to 75, 1 peseta. You take the urbanas, they were 2 escudos to start off with, and they were at the end 5 pesetas to end with. Now, the interesting part is that rules were those that were outside of San Juan. You paid cheaper for the affiliation of a slave than you did if in San Juan. I've tried to find out the logic for the difference of price, and really, I cannot find anything in any of the archives as an explanation of this. Since Puerto Rico abolished slavery on its own, not by Spain, on its own, in March of 1873, taking advantage of a fight in Spain between the monarchs and those who wanted a republic. After that, these stamps became kind of obsolete. They were sometimes used for IDs of non-citizens, but that was not really that common. Where you will find them mostly are enslaved registry. So that's why in 75 they disappeared, because slavery had been abolished in March of 73. There was really no need for it. Strangely, these were another stamps that were very scarce. They were sent in very low amounts to Puerto Rico, and you will find some of the documents with stamps of Documento de Policía. But if you look in the book of Garcia Lorna, on page 90, he has one that they use regular stamps on the affiliation of slaves. Apparently, and that was in Arecibo, apparently they had run out of the cédulas. That's the one stamp that I wanted to bring. Now, there are some other stamps that were used, and they were kind of uncommon. There was, like, for example, Arecibo had a certificate to say that your cows were healthy and they could produce milk and they could be sold as meat. The vet would come, and they did that for apparently something like 7 years. I have a couple of those, but those were specifically for Arecibo. They were not necessarily used for the whole island, and they went into that municipality's funds. And then there are the colegio ones, which we still use to this day, believe it or not. That started in 1876. You have Colegio Notarial, which are the notary stamps, which also were started in 1880 and still are used to this day. And the famous Montepios that were authorized in 82 to 85, which were to be used to help clinics with tuberculosis. También quiero hablar de las cédulas, los sellos de cédula que fueron creados en el 1869, las urbanas y las rurales en Puerto Rico. Se usaban mayormente para la documentación de la afiliación de esclavos, y ahí donde aparecían, y tenían ese uso mayormente. Se dice, y nunca lo he visto, que se usaban para personas no nacionales que estaban en el país, en su cédula de identificación. Nunca lo he visto. Se dejaron de emitir en 1875 porque sabemos que en 1873 Puerto Rico, por acto propio, no por el gobierno español, abrió la esclavitud en Puerto Rico y ya no había necesidad de usar estos sellos. Raramente el sello rural valía una peseta y el sello de cédula urbana valía 5 pesetas. Cédula urbana se usaba en San Juan y el cédula rural se usaba en el resto de la isla. No he podido encontrar una explicación por qué la diferencia, así que no puedo dársela, pero esa era la diferencia. También se sabe que cuando no podía encontrar el sello para la afiliación de esclavos, se usaba o documento de policía o, como el García Lona tiene en su página 90, uno de ellos con 4 sellos de 40 centavos, que era 2 pesetas, que no se eh, era válido, bueno, ese era válido en 1870, perdona. Sí, estoy mirándolo aquí. Los otros sellos que hablé es el sello de matrícula de ganado, que era en Arecibo, que se usó del 89 a 97. Eso era algo que cobraba el municipio de Arecibo. Mandaba un veterinario y decía que tu ganado podía ser usado para eh, leche y para carne. De hecho, dato histórico curioso, todavía está a esta altura, Atillo es el sitio de más ganado en Puerto Rico y no lo más de ganado en el Caribe. O sea que eso no ha cambiado. Los colegios de abogados, servicios notariales, eso todavía se usan hoy y se usaban desde 1876 y 1880. Se creó un Montepío por el gobernador de Puerto Rico en 1882 a 85 para combatir la tuberculosis en Puerto Rico. I want to end this in a very clear way. This is not a dissertation of everything about the Puerto Rico stamp revenues of the Spanish era. This is very brief. I could take 2 hours to discuss each one of these in detail. This is more to give you an illustration that Puerto Rico had revenue stamps even at the same time that they had communication stamps, and sometimes even earlier. Puerto Rico had a papel sellado before there was even an organized post office in the world. This was started in Spain in the 1600s, for those of you who do not know. We have more than 745 stamps that we have found from that period. And it's a lot when you consider that Puerto Rico communication stamps were only 223. So there were more. The purposes of these stamps, I try to discuss as briefly as I can because I have a time constraint here. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free. Now that I'm about to ask them, and I will be able to answer. Esto es una disertación bien breve. Los sellos de Puerto Rico fiscales de la época española son 745. Yo puedo hacer una disertación de 2 horas en papel sellado, puedo hacer otra disertación en pago al Estado y en las cédulas y demás, con todo el respeto. Esto es una breve insertación para que ustedes aprendan de los sellos fiscales de Puerto Rico, que nadie los colecciona grandemente y que hay un desconocimiento vasto aún en los coleccionistas de sellos de Puerto Rico. Es para abrir los ojos, dar un gustacito y para que a ver si ustedes cogen de aquí en adelante. De aquí en adelante contesto todas sus preguntas que ustedes tengan en inglés, en español. No hay
Yo tengo 3.
Ok, dale, Lucy.
Ok, el valor actual de esos sellos, actualmente, más o menos, ¿en cuánto estarían? ¿Muy alto a proporcionar al bolsillo de toda persona o no?
Y voy a contestar eso honestamente.
Ajá,
En una subasta reciente de iProfil, los títulos estaban a como en 50 pesos. If I'm going to answer, the title stamps went on auction and they were about $50 each. So when you ask me the value, first, we don't have a catalog for this era. Like Greg created one for the American era. We have an idea how much those are worth. I could tell you that if you sell, I'm paying $50 per title stamp. Estoy pagando 50 pesos por los sellos de título. Los sellos de derechos judiciales de 100 reales de plata fuerte de 65 a 56 valen aproximadamente, en mi opinión, $20 cada uno. Y los falsos valen 100.
Oh,
Ok, aquí,
y,
y
ok,
los otros
tengo
sellos,
entendido que depende de quién lo falsificó,
sí,
puede valer más o menos.
exacto, correcto.
¿Y hay algún lugar donde se pueda encontrar esas personas que son los mejores falsificadores que han habido?
Te puedo enviar copia de un artículo que yo tengo, sí.
Ok,
Muy bien.
entonces la otra es en los sellos judiciales,
Ujú.
¿cómo se puede identificar los fraudulentos cubanos a los que eran reales?
James, I have a question when you're ready.
Okay, let me finish, Lucy, now, and I'll get to you, okay? Los sellos, de hecho, es muy difícil decirte cómo, porque esos sellos como se cancelaban eran con una X. Aún yo tengo algunos que le ponía encima de dónde era, pero la forma más fácil de distinguirlo es si están en el documento te dice dónde es.
Si están en el documento de qué.
En el documento, digamos, esto es una sentencia de cobro, pues es una sentencia de cobro de Arecibo, pues sabemos que es Puerto Rico. Si es una sentencia de cobro de Cienfuegos, pues sabemos que es Cuba. Si están en el documento, lo que te quiero decir.
Ah, ok. O sea, no es como cuando chequeamos el barquito, las cositas que tienen y ya
No, no, no,
sabemos
no.
si.
Eh, eh,
No,
eh,
o sea, es de otra manera.
no, no, espérate. Si te me estás preguntando de las falsificaciones per se,
Per se,
eh,
o sea, si tú me pones un sello de Cuba y el falsificado, si yo, yo lo puedo identificar? Si lo veo solito, no en una carta o algo.
ok. En el álbum que hicimos de los sellos de cada de Puerto Rico, en la página 2 tiene bien grande la diferencia entre un genuino y un falsificado, pero bien
¿En,
grande.
en dónde me dijiste?
En el álbum de sello de fiscal de Puerto Rico que emitimos, en la página 2 aparece
En el que nosotros hicimos.
el que nosotros hicimos. Sí, y
Ah,
está bien
pero
grande.
yo no
Ay,
tengo ese álbum todavía. Ok.
ok, ok. Pero hay una cosa,
Página 2.
bueno, déjame si lo puedes ver, es, para que tú veas, está bien grande. ¿Ok?
Ok.
Tercera pregunta, tú me dijiste que tenías tres.
Entonces, es que yo no veo bien, espérate. Bueno, no sé en qué parte, porque
James, I
no
have a
entiendo
question.
lo que escribí, pero que
Ok.
vi que había unos sellos que estaban mutilados y otros que estaban, este, como decolorados. Para los coleccionistas, esos sellos que tienen como un cantito que se le cayó o están medio decolorados, eh, ¿tienen el mismo valor o tienen valor para un coleccionista o no?
Depende del coleccionista. Yo soy una persona que yo no colecciono sellos rotos. Yo,
Ok.
ese soy yo.
Que yo tengo uno que tiene un cantito roto en la esquina y lo tengo guardadito aparte, no lo he
No,
botado,
pero hay gente
porque
que,
como es el único que tengo, no lo quiero botar. O sea, lo tengo guardadito aparte, pero no lo he puesto en el álbum.
ok, te entiendo.
Ok, porque lo que pienso es, si encuentro uno en buenas condiciones, lo pongo en el álbum.
Exacto.
Pero
Eso, es lo
mientras tanto, pues tengo ese como referencia de cómo era el sello.
con todo respeto, eso lo llamamos acá fillers.
Ok,
It fills a space until I get the good one.
ok.